Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to review a book for you. Something a little different again. A little horror novel, kind of scary, so if you don't like that kind of stuff, I wouldn't watch this one, but who knows, maybe you can get into it. I won't spoil anything either. I'm trying to kind of keep away from that for movie and book reviews and stuff like that. Pretty soon, well, tomorrow it's going to be October, so if you saw my video about me doing a horror movie podcast, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get into it. I'm trying to figure out, I think I have an idea for the first book or first movie I'd like to watch, but haven't decided yet. So anyway, sorry for that. Today we're doing Night in the Lonesome October by Richard Laymon. Pretty cool title, right? This is a book that I think came out in 1994, and it's been about a month or so, maybe a month and a half since I've read it, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm a little weary on some of the details, but the general gist of the story and everything obviously is still in my mind, and mostly this is just a suggestion or so to speak. So the basis of this novel is you have a character named Ed who's about 20 years old. He's a college student, and this book is told through the first person. So he's basically really struggling after a breakup with his girlfriend Holly, and he meets up with Holly's not fraternity, sorority sister, her friend, and they kind of hook up and they kind of become kind of friends, so to speak, and that's the intro to the story, and then you see how he kind of goes and takes these long walks in this chilly October nights, basically, to kind of clear his mind, so to speak. And he kind of realizes that when he goes out and takes these walks at night, he sees that things are really weird in his town. This isn't really a supernatural book by any means, but just weird things are happening, creepy things, and sometimes they're intervening with him and his friends, and you kind of basically see this constant kind of basically sort of cycle of him going out at night and finding something weird or slightly unusual or unnerving, and then he comes back and maybe talks to his friend about it or doesn't, and then they start to intervene, so to speak. And that's the gist of the book. I don't want to really say too much because it's one of those books where if I start saying things, it'll spoil the experience. And it just all starts to come together to culminate towards this kind of ending. It's a little bit true crime at points, but it's mostly kind of a horror novel, and there's nothing like, there's no like, it's not like a stalker, like, slasher kind of book, so to speak, but it's got a very creepy vibe to it. Sorry if my lighting just got dark, it's just got overcast in here. Hopefully you can still see me. And this is by Richard Laymon, like I said, and I have read a couple of his books, and I haven't reviewed them on here, but I'll link my Goodreads where I've reviewed every book I've read. And I went to Richard Laymon because I was looking for other authors than Stephen King who do horror. Richard Laymon came up, Jack Ketchum came up, who I thought was just incredible. I've reviewed one of his books on here. Richard Laymon always comes up, and people always say he basically writes B-movie equivalents of books. They're books that don't have tons of substance to them, but they're kind of fun, and you'll probably have a good time. Lots of sex and violence, that kind of thing. And I want to say I've read 2 or 3 of his books, and that's spot on. There's not a ton of literary significance here. They're not the most well-written things I've ever read, but they're pretty fun. They're a little hit or miss. I've only read 3, so that's not really super fair assessment. But like this book, I also read Funland, which we'll do that on a different one. I wasn't really super thrilled with that one. This one's much better. It's not amazing. It's a little predictable at times, near the end, I will say. But a lot of times it just had me feeling like, what the hell's going on? A very creepy vibe, and that vibe really resonated with me personally because when I was younger, I really did like walking around at night and things like that because there's nobody around. It's dark, it's quiet, it's a little cold. You're walking and it's really peaceful. The street lights are illuminating the street and everything like that, and you see these houses that are just kind of totally asleep. It's a nice vibe, but you always get that slight uneasy feeling in the back of your mind. You always kind of look over your shoulder at a noise or something. You do get a little unnerved, and that's the feeling that this book gives you in spades. It's very good at that. Things do get a little crazy sometimes, a little unbelievable. They go a little bit ever so slightly, almost in like that Goosebumps sort of territory, which I described Funland in my review. Kind of felt like an adult Goosebumps book at times. It kind of get that here a little bit, but it doesn't go so far that it's like, I can't, this is like totally insane. It's definitely believable to a point, but it's a little crazy. But yeah, and it does have some instances of pretty good gore and stuff. So if you're a gore hound, you know, he's got it in there for you. If you don't like gore, those will be kind of hard to read because he, you know, it's pretty extreme. You know, when he does it, he's kind of like Ketchum where, you know, it might not be constant, super strong gore and violence, but when he does do it, he doesn't turn the camera away, so to speak. It's all explained in total detail. So I really enjoyed it. It gave a really good feel. I think that was my favorite part, was just the way it made me feel in the image. I really did enjoy that it was written in the first person, so you could get into his head, but the way it was written, I actually enjoyed this a lot. It was almost not even like you were in the character's head, I guess, but that you were aside next to them. Like you were viewing this from there with them. You were a silent observer in all the events that were taking place. You couldn't do anything to help, but you were just there along for the ride. That's kind of the vibe I got from the first person narrative in this book, and I thought it was done really well. Again, the ending was a little bit predictable and a little bit slightly of a letdown. I don't think the ending was bad by any means. I thought it was perfectly fine. I was just like, this book has a very sleepy, nightmarish, dreamy sort of vibe to it. It's very hard to explain, but that's the way it makes me feel. And the ending felt a little bit more akin to like a thriller movie, like very scripted almost. So I was like, okay, but he had to wrap the story up somehow. The characters were pretty well written, I think. It was pretty good. The only thing, and I mean, in this book, which is a Richard Laymon thing, is like, yes, there's sex in this and there's violence. That's the vibe he's going for. But like other people have commented, like, I normally don't have a problem with that. And I didn't have a problem with this book. It's just, it's very clearly the author putting his thoughts on the page. Richard Laymon loves breasts, dude. Like, he talks about a woman's boobs any chance he can get. Like, a lot. Like, just constantly. Like, at least once a chapter. And at first you're like, yeah, that's the style. It's, you know, whatever. It's kind of, you know, it's like horror movies, kids, you know, teenagers having sex and stuff. That's always in there. You expect that. But it's like every chapter, and it's like he had to get it in there. And like somebody joked something like a character could have their head 2 seconds from being cut off and they would like start commenting on how good a woman's boobs looked or something. It's like, okay, dude, we get it, man. You love boobs. Like, all right. That's the only thing where I'm like, that's a weird thing that he did. But other than that, it was pretty much fine. So this fun one, totally awesome for Halloween. It's a quick read. It's about 400 pages or so, 350, somewhere around there. I'm not totally sure because I read it on my Kindle, but it's a fairly quick read. It runs by like super fast. You could read it in a couple days. Awesome for Halloween, great vibe. It'll probably spook you a little bit. If anything, it's a fun time. That's my suggestion. I hope you enjoy. Peace out.